Well, thank you very much, Terry. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending today on this special occasion to celebrate Peter's 22 years as leader of the GSD. What can I say about Peter that hasn't been said before, that really properly pays a tribute to the man? I had toyed with the idea of relating to you some of the amusing anecdotes of my time working with Peter at number 6 Convent Place, but Terry quite rightly told me and reminded me that Peter obviously has a right to reply, and having witnessed his quite devastating right to replies at budget time, I resolved that discretion was the better part of valor in this situation. The reality is that no words can bear testimony, true testimony, to the hard work, to the dedication, to the sheer intellectual brilliance that Peter has brought to bear on his role as party leader over the last 22 years. And indeed, the affection and the esteem with which he is held by GSD members, by everybody in this room, and I believe by the vast majority of people out there in Gibraltar. It is very easy in politics to talk about visions, to hold the helm steady when the sea is calm. But the test of true leadership is to translate and have the ability to translate that vision into reality and to hold the helm steady in all kinds of weather, in rough as well as in calm seas. And in my view, in the history of Gibraltar politics, no one has done that better than Peter Caruana. Peter has held that helm steady through some of the most momentous and important moments in Gibraltar's history. It's easily forgotten how difficult and how truly momentous some of those moments are and were. How difficult it was to face down two European superpowers at the height of their influence within Europe, led by Aznar and Blair, at the height of their own influence within their own respective countries. Other chief ministers have faced threats from the United Kingdom or from Spain, but no chief minister has faced that kind of threat combined, overtly acting in concert on something as important as the joint or the sharing of sovereignty of Gibraltar, the Gibraltar that we love. And that by itself would have, in my opinion, guaranteed Peter's status as one of the truly great Gibraltarians of our time. But within a short 3 years, Peter had also persuaded the Spanish government to come around the table with the Gibraltar government with its own voice, with a right of veto in the context of the tripartite process, whilst also in parallel to that, persuaded the UK government to sit down with the Gibraltar delegation to negotiate a new constitution for Gibraltar. A remarkable translation of his own personal vision into reality. The Córdoba agreements, the first meeting of a Spanish foreign secretary with a chief minister on Gibraltar soil. The record economic growth in our economy when the economies elsewhere in Europe, certainly over the last 6 years, withered. The MOD deal that safeguarded hundreds of jobs and also safeguarded a disaster in our own economy. A new constitution that guaranteed the maximum level of self-government short of independence and compatible with British sovereignty, which is what the vast majority of Gibraltarians actually want. The repositioning of Gibraltar's reputation, the improvements on Gibraltar at all levels, and the improvement in the standard of living of Gibraltarians across the board. Remarkable achievements, a remarkable translation of Peter's vision into reality, and in my view, it guarantees Peter's status not only as one of the great Gibraltarians of our time, but as the greatest Gibraltarian of our time. But there are also, if I may be permitted, also a number of lessons that I've certainly learned from Peter, that the party's learned from Peter, and that we forget at our peril. And there are many, but I'm just going to talk to you today about two. The first is that I believe that one of Peter's most important achievements was to explode this myth once and for all that our political opponents have a monopoly on what it is to be a patriot and what it is to be a good Gibraltarian. That you can have red lines in the sand that you will not cross on fundamental issues in respect of the Gibraltar that we love, but that you can also engage the United Kingdom and Spain in a calm, confident, mature and intelligent way for the benefit of this community and without unnecessary belligerence. And to do that, and to articulate that, is also to be a good Gibraltarian and is also to be a patriot. And we must resist, if we are to retain the ability to make a difference in Gibraltar politics as a party, resist any attempt to roll back the years to 20, 25 years of what it is to be a good Gibraltarian and what it is to be a patriot. And secondly, being a good leader is not about saying yes to everything and yes to everyone. It's not about being all things to all men. It's not about creating unreasonable expectations that are not in the short, medium or long-term interests of this community. Good leadership is also about being willing to take and to defend decisions, to not only say yes, but sometimes it's more difficult to say no, to point out that in the same way as the community and the collective owe a duty to the individual, so too does the individual owe a duty to the collective and to the community. What I've attempted to describe as the politics of responsibility, the antidote to the a mí me pertenece culture in Gibraltar politics, fueled by unreasonable election promises at election. And we've got to take a leaf out of Peter's book and be courageous and be able to articulate also that message, no matter how unpopular that message will be in certain quarters. But before I finish, I'd also like to pay tribute to Christina. It's not easy to be the wife of a politician. I should say also husband, because Isabel is here, but to be the spouse of a politician here in Gibraltar, still less to be the wife of a chief minister for 16 years and the leader of the opposition for 5. Gibraltar is a very, very small community. A chief minister of Gibraltar is not only expected to deal with foreign secretaries, but also with the day-to-day problems of constituents that may seem small to us, but mean the world to them. And politics, therefore, can be very intrusive. It can be very intrusive on those around you, on your family life, on your private life. I can say without hesitation that Christina has borne those stresses with dignity and absolute class. She has always been there at Peter's side, always supportive of Peter, and I doubt very much that Peter could have achieved even a quarter of what he has achieved without the support of Christina by his side. So on behalf of the entire GSD, Christina, thank you very much for what you've done for all of us.
Friends, looking around this room and seeing so many faces that have been part of this project since it began in 1990, so many people that have been there from the very beginning. It just underlines just how far this party has come from the days when we used to meet nervously in an upper room in Haven Court and then steal a drink in the pub across the street in the hope that not too many people would see us and report us to the government. And since then, this party has grown, not just to be the government of Gibraltar for 4 successive terms, but almost more important than that. It has grown to be the party that actually speaks for and represents the values, standards and aspirations of the vast majority of the people of this community. This party does and was designed to cross cultural, ethnic, religious, age, divides, social divides, economic divides. It has presidents of the Chamber of Commerce and district officers of the Transport and General Union, Workers' Union, and everybody in between as part of this great, great political family that is the GSD. It's not for nothing that everyone feels at home here, everybody feels represented, and the reason is that this party has never been ideologically driven. It has been values driven. It has been standards driven. It has been vision and aspiration for Gibraltar driven. It has been driven by what we would each want to create for our children and grandchildren to grow up in, and that knows no barriers of class or race or creed of any kind. And generous as this evening is to me, it would be foolish to think that even a fraction of that, let alone all of that, could have been achieved by any one single person. It has been achieved by a team of many people, not just my fellow ministers and my fellow parliamentarians, but a veritable battery of people who in a sense are more admirable than those of us who get glory in public for what we achieve and do, is the hundreds of GSD members, of GSD activists, of GSD executive members, of GSD supporters who work quietly, out of sight, with no public recognition, with no public credit, simply because they believed in the project and therefore they have given completely unselfishly to the achievement of what would not have been achievable without them. So I'd like to thank you all, so many of you that I see in this room today, not just on behalf of myself, but on behalf of all the politicians of the GSD that you have supported over the years, for your support, for your hard work, not just for getting us elected repeatedly, but for morally supporting us in between elections. Without you all, it just would not have been possible. Thank you. Now, I think that not even the most ungenerous of our political opponents would assert that the last 16 years have not been good for Gibraltar. Of course, as Frank Sinatra has reminded us this evening, there are things that we regret. Of course, there are things that we would have done differently with the benefit of hindsight. Things that we might not have done at all. Things that we perhaps felt should have done better. But I think that on balance, and allowing for the fact that human endeavor necessarily involves and includes failures along the way, even allowing in a maximum quota for that inescapable consequence of human endeavor, I think the GSD years in government in the past, by the way, as will be the GSD years of government in the future, have been and will be good. Before I leave the past, there are two people in particular, with apologies for anybody that I forget, who have been instrumental in the success of the party, in my election and in my motivation since. Two people that fate has taken from us much, much too soon. Who can forget the sheer commitment and enthusiasm of Albert Ajus in that event in the 1996 election on the bridge in Glasgow? Albert Ajus was instrumental in my election into office. By the way, when I used to do things that he didn't like, he used to say to me, "Mira, Peter, que yo te puse ahí, te quito cuando me dé la gana," ¿sabes? Well, I think it's fitting that on the day that you commemorate my retirement, that I remember him in the presence of you all. As it is equally fitting that I remember a man who had Gibraltar's interests in his blood, who was an unquestioning, daily source of support and inspiration to me, at whom I never threw a telephone, Francis Cantos. You know, in democracy, it's a huge privilege to get the opportunity to steer the fate and the destiny of your fellow citizens just once. Twice is a double privilege. 3 times is rare, and 4 times is a humbling experience and a wonderful privilege to be bestowed on anybody by their fellow citizens. And in return, I hope that even those people who have not been able to support the GSD at the ballot box will recognize that in return for their trust and the confidence of the majority of the people of Gibraltar, I and my ministerial colleagues have always worked tirelessly, all the hours that are necessary, with the degree of commitment that getting this community forward successfully and protecting our legitimate rights and aspirations as a people may from time to time have required. I believe that the legacy of that part of the era of the GSD government that I have had the privilege to lead, and I'm sure that the future will have the same, has delivered for Gibraltar transformation on many fronts. Our economy, the physical appearance of Gibraltar, the reputation of Gibraltar, the institutions modernized, the new hospital, the leisure centre, etc. But more important than all those physical achievements, more important even than the sense of socio-economic prosperity that our policies have brought about, more pride it instills in me still the fact that for the 16 years that the GSD was in government, people lived in Gibraltar at peace and contentment with themselves, safe and secure. Safe and secure in the knowledge that they had a government that they could trust to create the Gibraltar that they wanted for their children and their grandchildren. And now, I know that many of you have been disappointed by my decision to stand down. It was not an easy decision, but it was a decision that was made easier by the fact that I was confident that I was leaving the party in good hands. One of the great differences that the GSD wanted to contribute to the political landscape of Gibraltar was a political party that was not just a vehicle for the political ambitions of its leader, but rather a political project that could survive its leader and move from generation to ensure that its values and that its standards and that its approach and vision to Gibraltar and its future would be passed from generation to generation, and so would continue to inure to the benefit of this community. And I believe that the time was right, after 4 terms in office, for me to stand down from the party leadership. Not just for me personally. Much has been said, not enough, about the sacrifice that Christina has made, always unselfishly, to support me in my office. Danny's absolutely right. It is not possible to do this job for 16 years successfully and well without the support of a loving domestic environment and a loving and supporting wife. Darling, thank you very much. Where Danny fell short of being as generous as he might have been is in recognizing that Christina is not the only member of my family that has made a sacrifice. I think that it needs to be recognized that my children have paid a huge price for the years that I have dedicated to trying to create a better Gibraltar for them, as well as for everybody else's children. I have often been an absent father. True it was that I knew that the kids were in the safe hands of Christina. But frankly, I thought that after 22 years of contribution to our collective interests as a community, it was time for me to play a fuller role within my own family, within the community, but never being too far from a willingness to do whatever it was required of me to continue to support the community. So I now look forward to being able to do much more of the things that fathers have been doing for their children for the last 16 years and that I have not. And I now look forward to trying to make up for lost time. As I said earlier, the future is in good hands. What political party has transitioned from a 22-year leadership into a new leadership with not one, but 2 candidates, both of which could just as easily have been the job, and I believe both of which will be Chief Ministers of Gibraltar at some time in the future. With no disrespect to Damon, who I think has all the qualities to be a leader of this community in the future, this was the moment for Danny. Danny has shown, through things that have happened to him in the past, a commitment to public service in Gibraltar that few people have ever been asked to show in the past. He has the intellect, he has the commitment, he has the ability to be not just a great leader of this party, not just a great leader of the opposition in Parliament, but I think that earning the support not just of everybody in this party, as he must, but the support of everybody in the community, or at least the majority of people in the community, as he must, I think one day he will be a great Chief Minister of Gibraltar as well. And for all the hard work and for all the sacrifices that the job has entailed, I consider myself to be amongst the luckiest people ever to have lived in Gibraltar. How many people can say that they have led their community for 16 years with the support of a wonderful political family like this, that after 16 years there is still respect for the political party and for its leadership in this community, and that at the same time I have raised the most fantastic family that any man could possibly want to have fathered and been father of. So I know that even those of you who wish I had not stood down will wish me and my wife and my children happiness in the future. I will always be willing to do what it takes to help this party from the backbenchers until 2015 and thereafter from outside Parliament. In the meantime, I hope that you will all stick together, that you will support Danny in the future of the party. It is right that I should stand down at this time so that the party has a future that does not die with me politically when my political career would in any event have come to an end sooner or later. We need to rejuvenate ourselves. We need to reach out to the youth. We already won the support of the majority of the elderly people in Gibraltar, despite, remember the campaign about the pension for community care? This party has shown that it can win the support of sectors of this community that we once did not have. And the same is true of the youth. And when we win the success of the support of the youth, we will have rejuvenated this party and ensured that sometime in the near future, we will have another 16 years of uninterrupted governance so that Gibraltar can once again benefit from the success of the last time that this party governed for 16 years. Thank you all very much.